Dogman is undoubtedly one of the best made movies in recent years, bringing back the characters we already love while being even more fun than expected.
Great idea!
But did you notice that even this big production has animation and logic mistakes?
You're the only one that can stop him, with all your kung fu skills and your canine fortitude or whatnot.
Right at the beginning of the movie, we see Officer Knight alongside his dog Greg, searching for Petey during yet another one of the mischievous cat's antics. The mistake happens when the officer stops the police car right in the middle of an intersection between two streets. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice that in the next scene, the connection between the two avenues is gone. Sure, some might argue that the car moved when we weren't looking, but in this case, it's definitely a mistake because we clearly saw the car stop, and then the scene immediately switches to the inside of the police car. The car didn't move forward or backward, meaning the production forgot to keep the characters where they were supposed to be. But luckily, you know exactly where you need to be, right? Right here with us to check out 11 mistakes in the newest Dogman adaptation. Get ready, because some of these errors are hilarious. So grab your popcorn and call your pet, because another Cinewave is about to begin. Are OK City's police cars special? Or maybe Officer Knight took some driving lessons from the Fast and Furious crew? That's because during the chase, as soon as Petey appears in yet another flying machine, the officer and his loyal dog Greg are right behind him. But if you pay close attention, you'll see that when they are crossing the highway, Officer Knight somehow makes the car jump over the other vehicles and land on the other side of the road. Up until this point, it's an electrifying, adrenaline-filled action scene that no one questions. But wait a minute, how exactly did the car jump from one side of the road to the other if there was no ramp? Regular cars don't perform stunts like that without the help of a ramp, a trampoline, or a turbo boost installed in the engine. Something like that would at least explain it. This is a logic mistake. Yes, Dogman is a kid's animation about a man with a dog's head, but we can't just let this slide. Cats talk, buildings walk, and fish fly, but cars jumping without a ramp? Now that's too much. Still in the chase scene, something else weird happens, and we're talking about a small animation mistake, if we can even call it that. We might have let it slide since the movie is so good, but you came here to uncover the details, right? During the chase scene, right before Petey jumps off the end of the bridge to the other side, blocked due to construction, we can see that both cars are almost bumper to bumper. Officer Knight is just about to catch Petey, but in the very next shot, there's a massive gap between the cars. And yes, that's a mistake. Sure, they're in a race, but it still makes no sense for the cars to be so close together. And then suddenly, the distance increases so much that only Petey's car appears on screen while Officer Knight and his trusty sidekick completely vanish. We know the reason was that Petey needed to jump first, but it created a logic mistake that very few people noticed. The next mistake happens multiple times throughout the movie, but we'll show you the first time it occurs. It's a mistake that's very common in another animation we talk about a lot on this channel. Peppa Pig and her two eyes appearing on the same side of her face. In Dogman's case, you know he has 3 little dots on his snout, representing a dog's whiskers. These 3 black dots are actually 6 since he has them on both sides of his face. The mistake happens when we see Dogman from the front. For most of the movie, the character is shown in profile, so the other half of his snout is invisible, which is fine. But take a look at this scene inside the police car when Dogman appears facing the camera for the first time. Where are the 3 dots on the other side of his face? Unlike the book written by author Dave Pilkey, the movie is in 3D, meaning there's no excuse for not adding Dogman's whisker marks on both sides of his face when he's shown from the front instead of in profile. The only way to avoid this issue would be to never draw the character from this angle, so this is a very clear animation mistake. Does your dog or cat have whiskers? Comment #whiskers so we know. Still in the chase scene, when Petey is about to crash through the road safety barrier, we can see the following objects. Several pointed cones and a larger, rounder one on the left corner, along with a wooden barrier with a sign warning about the end of the road. Petey doesn't care about the warning at all and smashes through the barrier. So far, nothing unexpected from a villain. But everything Petey destroyed should have landed on the asphalt, right? Including the objects he didn't even hit, since many cones were on the roadside. Now look at what happens next. Where did the big round cone on the left corner go? Petey went straight through the middle of the blockade. There was no way he knocked everything down. And where did all the debris from the barrier go? It should be in the middle of the road, but it just disappeared. Did it all just fly away? Speaking of flying, it looks like the DreamWorks team forgot how wind works in this movie. Have you ever gone skydiving? That feeling in your stomach is no joke, but in Dogman, they somehow make a parachute work in the most incorrect way possible. When Officer Knight's police car is falling from the sky, the parachute deploys and gets carried away by the wind. Have you ever seen an umbrella caught in the wind? It drifts far away from where it started. But then, as soon as Chief stops his car directly below where Officer Knight's car was falling, the parachute suddenly drops straight onto him. That's a huge logic mistake. If the wind carried the parachute away, there's no way it could have fallen straight down like that, right? That's not how wind works. And even in a highly stylized animated film, we can definitely call this an animation mistake. Now, when Chief is talking to Dogman in his office, there's a weird positioning mistake with one of his decorations. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that when we see the officer from the front, there's a city flag right behind him. That flag stays in the same spot throughout the whole movie. But when the camera angle changes to show Chief and Dogman facing each other, the flag suddenly appears beside Chief. That makes no sense. If the flag was behind him, then just because he walked forward, it shouldn't have magically moved next to his head. It's as if the office decoration shifted forward along with Chief. Of course, this is a tiny detail that's hard to notice and doesn't really affect the viewing experience, but still, the animators let this little slip-up slide. Later in the movie, when Lil Petey is abandoned by his creator, we see the sad little kitten carrying his box through the city, completely lost and unsure of where to go. That's when some streetlights turn on and we see a few moths fluttering around the one near Lil Petey. But when the camera angle changes, the moths are completely gone, like they were never there to begin with. Sure, they could have just flown away when Petey got close, but that doesn't seem to be the case here, because even when he was standing right next to them, the insects didn't seem to care. It really looks like the animation team simply forgot to draw the moths in the next shot. You know what else shouldn't be abandoned? Our channel, so make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. When the movie first came out, barely anyone noticed that Petey's ex-butler was in the background taking a picture of Lil Petey and Dogman during that montage of them having fun in the city and spending happy days together. The problem is that later on, something really strange happens, and it all comes down to how the scene is edited. Take a look. While Dogman and Lil Petey are out in the street, the kitten is holding balloons that lift him into the air. He would have floated away if Dogman hadn't jumped up and grabbed him by the feet. Right after the officer lands on the ground, he sighs in relief. And that exact moment, when Dogman is midair saving his tiny friend, is when the butler takes her picture. But a few minutes later, when Petey's ex-butler shows up at the hideout to show him the photo, what we see on her phone is just a normal picture of Dogman standing on the ground holding Petey and his balloons. That's not the moment the picture was taken. This is a clear continuity error. The image should have shown Dogman leaping into the air to save his new friend. Another mistake happens right after the big fight between Dogman and Petey in that squirrel-shaped tank. When Petey's machine gets stuck on the Philly statue, Dogman is left hanging onto the tank's barrel. And in the background, we can see a few things. A taxi in the middle of the street, another car further back, and some people running. Plus, no other roads are visible. But when the scene changes, Dogman is still hanging on, yet now the taxi has moved from the center of the street. A bus has suddenly appeared in the corner, another car is visible on a road that didn't exist in the previous shot, and there's even a traffic barrier that wasn't there before. Did all these objects just come to life and jump into the scene for their 5 seconds of fame? The next mistake could have been intentional, but honestly, anyone unfamiliar with the Dogman universe must have been pretty confused when they noticed this happening. If you look closely, you'll see that Dogman's creators, George and Harold, are standing in the middle of the crowd when the giant magically animated buildings start destroying everything. But in the scene where the two are sitting on a bench in the city square watching the chaos unfold, they seem far away from all the action. Then when the camera shifts to show the audience behind Sarah Hadoff's news report, George and Harold suddenly appear in the crowd behind the extras. This makes it seem like the animators forgot where the characters were supposed to be and accidentally duplicated them. Of course, this could have been intentional. After all, in the Dogman world, George and Harold are basically gods who can be anywhere at any time. Even so, it's still an animation mistake because the movie never explains why they're in 2 places at once. Of course, none of these mistakes ruin the fun of Dogman. In fact, some of them might even make you laugh even more while watching this amazing movie. And if you want to dive deeper into this universe, we've got 2 more videos lined up just for you. See you in the next video!